I've heard people say that the question, what is your favorite movie, is a hard one, but I couldn't disagree more, especially not for the past 6 years. Now, I've seen some truly amazing movies in the last 6 years and in my life in general. Movies that changed me, movies that made me cry, movies that felt like I was looking into a mirror, and yet, still 6 years later, I've rarely ever questioned if Into the Spider-Verse was still my favorite movie. I remember when I first wrote this video thinking, well, Spider-Verse 2 comes out next year, so that'll probably be my new favorite movie. It felt like I was just going to naturally evolve from the first to the sequel. And the night I saw Across the Spider-Verse, I actually remember walking out of the theater saying, that was better than Into the Spider-Verse. I mean, the stakes were larger, the cast was bigger, the animation had doubled down in so many ways. But as time passed, my opinion pretty quickly changed back. There's something special about Into the Spider-Verse that I don't think either of the sequels will be capable of matching. It is, at least to me, one of those lightning in a bottle movies. I mean, the first video I ever uploaded, which is now deleted, was about Into the Spider-Verse. And while I don't look back on that video as fondly as I hoped, I'm still glad I chose to make it about Spider-Verse. It's not only my favorite movie ever, but in a lot of ways, the most important movie to me too. There's so many things to love about this movie, I don't even know where to begin. But we have to start somewhere, so let's talk about the animation. This is my favorite animation style ever. This is by and far the coolest way a comic book story has ever been adapted, next to only like Scott Pilgrim. It's accurate to comics in such cool little ways that also enhance the animation. They use Ben Day dots so well. Shadows are drawn with hatching. Things in the background have that almost 3D effect comics do from color misprinting. When a character's moving, they use multiple limbs to create the illusion of movement. If you take any frame from the movie, it will look like it was pulled straight from a comic book with detailed animation. There's so many awesome ways they paid love to Marvel Comics while also making the animation look better and like nothing else out there. The attention to detail in this movie is insane. I love catching something new every time I rewatch this movie. The animation is also used to help elevate the story. They use frame rate in this really awesome way. Every animation studio today is animating their movies at 24 frames per second or on ones, which means characters are animated in each individual frame. During the first two acts, when Miles is less skilled at being Spider-Man, he's animated 12 frames per second, or on twos, which means he is frozen every other frame. They show how clunky or inexperienced Miles is compared to other Spider-Man in such a unique way, and when Miles finally becomes Spider-Man, when he finally takes that leap, he's animated at 24 frames per second. I love the fluid and unique styles each character has. While they certainly got more experimental and across, the entire cast here still feels so unique, so visually distinct and different from the rest, down to every small detail like I was saying. Also, this has been said to death, but it's my turn to crush on Spider-Verse, so those damn colors, man. They're beautiful, vibrant, and a lot of scenes they directly portray Miles' mood as well. I just absolutely love the animation in this movie. I think the Spider-Man community needed Into the Spider-Verse. All the Spider-Man community ever does is argue and complain, and it's truly a testament to just how good Into the Spider-Verse is that basically the entire Spider-Man community recognizes how amazing this movie is. Like I just said, people are granular about their Spider-Man. They always talk about how different each Spider-Man is to the comics and how less accurate some are than others, and Spider-Verse spits in the face of that idea. We have two completely different Peter Parkers who both represent what it means to be Spider-Man in their own way. This movie is all about how anyone can be Spider-Man, anyone can wear the mask. Spider-Man made something different to everybody, and no other Spider-Man gets that like Spider-Verse. Considering how this conversation was only exacerbated during the release of Across, I think making this the core message of your first Spider-Verse movie and the first ever Miles movie is really important. Who knows how long it'll be before we get Miles in live action, but for most people's first introduction to a non-Peter Spider-Man, tackling this early worked really well for me. The core of Spider-Man is the get back up scene. It's just someone who isn't willing to give up no matter how hard it gets. All the best Spider-Man stories tackle that, and Spider-Verse does it incredibly well. I went into this a lot in my first Spider-Verse video and basically every time I've talked about Spider-Verse, but it's really insane to me how well this movie reinvented the character of Miles Morales. Miles in the comics and his video game is a pretty boring character. He feels too much like Peter, and outside of his new powers, there isn't a lot to differentiate the two. But in Into the Spider-Verse, Miles couldn't be more different than Peter. Miles loves street art, and he's good at it. He loves hip-hop music. He has a close relationship with his uncle, but in a very different way than Peter, and in a way that plays out much better than it does in the comics. Miles' suit is my favorite example of how they changed Miles. I love that they chose to have Miles graffiti and design his own suit. Not only because I think it looks awesome, but it's also symbolic of how they reinvented Miles. Although Miles technically wears the same suit as Peter, and therefore wears the same burden of being Spider-Man, he wears it in his own way. He's his own Spider-Man. Throughout the movie, Miles learns not to try and do it like Peter, or not to try to be Spider-Man like Peter Parker. This is evident in the fact that Miles wears a Halloween Spider-Man costume. It's an imitation, much like Miles then, and it doesn't fit until it's his. There's so much personality in the way he swings alone. I mean, all the Spider-Men are distinctive in their swinging style, but Miles stands out. Miles is his own man down to the last detail. Like I said, this movie is a love letter to Spider-Man and all the different iterations of the character, but it stands out as a love letter to Miles Morales specifically. All of this being said, what makes Into the Spider-Verse my favorite movie, and what makes it important to me? I think these questions kind of go hand in hand, and I think they have a lot to do with when I saw this movie. I was halfway through my senior year of high school and had a lot of questions and not a lot of answers, or at least answers that I liked. I was afraid and didn't feel like I really understood the world or my place in it, and even just for 2 hours, Into the Spider-Verse made me feel okay, and most of all, it inspired me. I want to talk about that first part real quick. Into the Spider-Verse is in a lot of ways about fear and anxiety. Spider-Man is my favorite character because I love the idea of someone powerful or special being like normal people, being a normal person at the end of the day. Peter Parker is scared of his normal life. He's not always scared of the big bad. He's scared of commitment or how he'll pay rent next week. Our Spider-Men are afraid, and you know, it's okay to be. Life is scary, and it doesn't really get less scary, but you don't let that stop you. You gotta take the leap of faith. And to that second part, I feel like it's a pretty universal experience to walk out of a movie so blown away and inspired to make something. Spider-Verse is far from the only movie or piece of art to elicit this feeling out of me, but it did it at a really important time, and I can't ever thank it enough for that. I likely wouldn't be making YouTube videos today if it wasn't for Into the Spider-Verse. I probably wouldn't be watching as many movies or pursuing this passion as deeply. To see a movie that works so well on every level, it feels like a vision executed so perfectly, was mind-blowing to me. To continue the trend on my channel of making basketball comparisons that probably few to none of my viewers will understand, it was like the 2017 Warriors, the 2024 Celtics playing basketball. It was airtight, perfect. I felt like this was how basketball was meant to be played. It's unfair to watch so much talent at such a high level in one movie. Spider-Verse felt like how movies were meant to be, and it made me not afraid to talk and share about the things I like. It's the reason I started making YouTube videos, and it's a big reason why I'll keep making them. So as always, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, let me know your thoughts down below, and go watch Into the Spider-Verse.